This meeting is being recorded.
Welcome back to another episode in our series on the architecture of reality. I am still dislodged from my office, so I'm recording in my classroom this morning. We have we've been working through some of the heavenly aspects of architecture, talked about jurisdictions, we've talked about a number of ways that they believed that there was influence from the heavens, as well as looking up, seeing the symbolic nature and the reflection of the heavens as something that our Earth is supposed to work towards reflecting the reality that they see in the heavens. Well, I want to talk about gravity, uh, because we say a lot of times things like um, the medievals didn't understand gravity, or Isaac Newton discovered gravity, things like that. And when in reality, that's just it's kind of a weird way of telling the story, but it fits the Enlightenment mode of storytelling, where they like to talk about the Middle Ages between the glories of the ancients and then the rediscovery of everything in the Enlightenment. So that it was this dark ages before, and then the Enlightenment comes on the scene, right? They like to tell the story that way. Uh, and so things like, Isaac Newton discovers gravity. It's an odd way of telling the story, but it makes sense in what they're trying to accomplish with the story. The reality is, gravity is something that they knew and they understood. They had uh, shown and proven that the world was round since ancient Greece. We've got the, the mathematical proofs of the world being round, and their their estimations on the size of the Earth are incredibly accurate, considering the tools they had, especially. Uh, and but we see one of the places, if you go in thinking that they didn't understand gravity before Isaac Newton, and you go and start to um, read the Divine Comedy, Dante's Divine Comedy, you're going to be, by the time you have finished um, the Inferno, you're going to be confused because of the way that he accurately represents and understands how the gravitational force. So, in Dante's Inferno, he goes through hell. Inferno, he goes through purgatory in Purgatorio, and then he goes through the heavens, the sky, in order to reach the heaven of heavens in the Paradiso. And in uh, at the very beginning, because of fear and because of cowardice, as he puts it, black cowardice, he won't go on the journey. And so he has to be chased to the journey by some wild animals. And he finally connects with Virgil, who then guides him through hell and purgatory. And the whole time he's taking a tour through the levels of hell, the nine levels of hell, he's going down. So um, I imagine it like a giant corkscrew around a pit. Right? He's going down, down, down through the nine levels of hell, and he gets to the very bottom, and he finds Satan, who has sort of furry, haunchy, uh, furry haunches, goat legs, and he's frozen. He's frozen, trapped in ice, because he has so fully embraced death willingly that even though he's living for eternity, he's frozen. And because uh, movement, and life and energy are his great enemy, so he has been punished with being stuck, and he's chewing on Judas. He's chewing on Brutus, and he and Virgil and Virgil and Dante need to get past him, and so they actually climb down his furry sides. But right as they hit the center of the earth, gravity shifts. It turns, right. So they're climbing down until they get to the center of the earth, and then it shifts, and they have to climb up the other side because he understood that the world is round and the center is the center of gravity for everyone, and so he climbs up and he begins his ascent through purgatory, and they climb up through the levels of purgatory, and so hell is filled with people telling it's explaining all of the lies that we tell ourselves to avoid just turning to God. Right, that's what the hell is about. So in some ways, it's sort of an apologetic work because people choosing, it's all these people explaining why the lies they told themselves to choose sin over God, and we see that Dante understands that. Where Dante believes that sin actually contains within itself the beginning of its own punishment. Right. So in the committing the sin, you begin to receive the punishment because contained within the sin, committing the sin is the beginning of the punishment. So the sin is among other things, it's a self-destruction. It's a self-destructive behavior. Well, and purgatory is uh, people explaining the lies that they tell themselves to that kept them from repenting of their sins during their lifetime, right? So that convinced them that they could hold out, they could continue on in a particular sin and not turn from it. And so purgatory is it's people being hurt the punishments of their sins are being purged from them by the grace of God. And so you have and so if you read the Purgatorio, what's interesting is you find yourself going through, oh yeah, tell myself that lie, I should stop doing that, right? That's sort of the purpose of the fantastical, of the fantasy, is to one of the purposes is to help us identify the lies we tell ourselves in our own life. And so he and Virgil climbing through the purgatory, and he gets to the end of purgatory, and Virgil has to leave him, and he's handed off to a new guide, which is Beatrice. And there's a whole story behind why Beatrice ends up being the guide. She had died, been his first love, and she had died young, and but in the beauty of Beatrice, he had discovered as he'd gotten older that there was an invitation uh, to discover the beauty of God, or an invitation to follow God was embedded in the beauty of this woman that was his first love. So it's sort of like, when Justin Bieber sings "Baby, Baby, Baby" when he's young. Um, Dante had that sort of reaction to Beatrice, but he came to understand later as he got older uh, that the beauty of Beatrice was actually God's beauty shining through her, and her rejection of him when he was young because he wasn't a very good Christian and wasn't a devout person, caused him to look into how to grow in his devotion to God, and so he sees that the invitation. So and then it's like an older Justin Bieber singing holy about his wife, right? So I guess Justin Bieber is the new Dante, maybe, I don't know. But Beatrice leads him through the heavens, the first heavens. So they fly up and they go past the moon, they go past the sun, they go past Mercury and Mars and Jupiter and Venus, and then they go past the stars. And at each place, there's a different virtue that is put on display, and the beauty and the joy of the virtue is supposed to help us um, conquer the lies that are being told in Inferno, and conquer the lies that are being told in Purgatorio. So the lies themselves are conquered not just simply through argumentation, but by the beauty of what those lies are keeping us back from. So he travels up and up and up till he gets to the stars, and then he hits the prima mobile, which is the farthest sphere out on the very edge of the solar system, and he gets to, or the edge of the universe, and he gets to the prima mobile and is guided through, and Beatrice hands him off to God himself as the new guide. And but there's this really interesting moment. Now, if you remember that gravity shifted when he went through the center of the Earth, well, it surprisingly it ends up doing the exact same thing, right? He hits the Empyrean, the heaven of heavens, where he comes into the presence of God, and he learns that the love of God is the principle of unity and integration of all things, right? That the love of God is the principle of unity. So um, that God, he loves his creation. The Father loves the Son loves the Spirit. The Father loves the Spirit. The Son loves the Father, and the Spirit loves the Father and the Son. Right, and then they also love what they've created, and then that love of God and is the principle of unity. It's the principle of integration. It's what holds all things together, and that the heavenly motivation is the love of God and the love of neighbor, right? And that's actually what is causing even the sun, the moon, the stars to all move. For it's what is the prima mobile is moving in responsive love of the creation, the creator. And then there's this huge surprise because gravity shifts again, right, without warning. Everything is suddenly recentered as he moves into the Empyrean, into the heaven of heavens. When he thought he was traveling down, he was actually traveling up. When he thought he was traveling up all this time through uh, Purgatorio and through Paradiso, he was actually traveling down. Just so his dislodgement at the beginning of the book that was caused by the cowardice and by the fear had actually inverted reality for him, right? His cowardice, his fear, his sin had inverted and flipped reality on its head. But the ultimate unneeding love of the triune God, a love that needed nothing, but poured out in generous love anyway, it ends up righting him. It turns him back right side up. And so he's finally on his feet for the first time. And all this time that he thought he was on his feet, he was actually upside down to reality. It's a really brilliant, incredible moment, and it's beautifully portrayed, and it makes the all of the time. I think it makes all the time worth it. That just joy of surprise at the end, and but it also shows you uh, that that even something like gravity, because uh, the medievals they never um, minimized things down to what's their basis, what's their simple basis, what's the most important thing. Or they're always they would look at reality and they would see, okay, what are the physical properties, where did it come from, what's it made for, and what is the allegorical property of this thing in reality. Or and then because they wanted to understand um, what a thing was, what it was for, and what it showed us about reality, about its creator, what it showed us about who we are. So even gravity has an allegorical relationship to God when Dante gets to it. Right. So this is the kind of theological understanding, the kind of cosmology that causes people to build cathedrals, to say, let's imitate this massive, filled with meaning, fully integrated universe that that by the way it was created pulls our heart up, and even something like gravity, pulling us down, can be turned into something that pulls our hearts up to God when it's investigated for what it actually is.